You did everything right. You maxed out the 401k match, you opened the Roth, you picked the target date fund and never touched it. And now, 30 years later, you're staring at a financial advisor's screen that says you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year for the rest of your life and never run out of money. Feels good, right? Feels like the finish line. Except that number was calculated using stock market data from 1926 to 1976. 50 years. One country. One specific, unusually lucky stretch of American history. And you are about to bet your entire retirement every year you have left on the assumption that the next 30 years look exactly like that one. They might not. And the people who built their entire plan around that single number are the ones most exposed when they don't. The 4% rule isn't wrong exactly. It's incomplete in a way that almost nobody explains to you before you retire, only after, when it's a lot harder to fix. Here's where the number actually comes from. In 1994, a financial planner named William Bengen ran the numbers on market history and found that if a retiree withdrew 4% of their portfolio in year one, then adjusted that amount for inflation every year after, their money survived every single 30-year period in the data he tested, going back to 1926. It became gospel almost overnight. Financial advisors built entire practices on it. Bloggers turned it into a lifestyle. An entire movement decided that once your portfolio hit 25 times your annual expenses, you were free. The math is elegant. It's also built on one specific historical sample, and Bengen himself has said publicly, more than once, that 4% was conservative for the data he tested. Not a universal law of investing. The rule survived 100 years of American markets. It has never been tested against 100 years of the next 100 years. Let's talk about why that gap actually matters, because it's not just an academic nitpick. The 1926 to 1976 window that produced the 4% rule includes some of the strongest sustained American equity returns in recorded history. It does not include a retiree starting their withdrawals in, say, 1929, right before the market lost 89% of its value. It does not include Japan, where the stock market peaked in 1989 and still, more than 3 decades later, has not fully recovered. It does not include any retiree unlucky enough to retire directly into a prolonged bear market in a country that never fully bounces back on the 10-year timeline American history has trained us to expect. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it is the single most dangerous, least discussed threat to anyone using a fixed withdrawal number. Here's the mechanism, and it's simpler than it sounds. It's not about your average return over 30 years. It's about the order those returns arrive in. Picture 2 retirees. Both have $1 million. Both withdraw $40,000 in year 1, adjusted for inflation after that. Both average exactly 7% annual returns over their 30-year retirement on average. Identical performance. The first retiree gets good returns early. Up 15% in year 1, up 12% in year 2, strong years while the portfolio is at its largest. Her money compounds while it's flush, and by year 30, she's sitting on more than $4 million, despite having withdrawn from it every single year. The second retiree gets the exact same average return, but in reverse order. Down 20% in year 1, down 12% in year 2. The bad years hit first, while the portfolio is largest and the withdrawals are cutting into it most severely. Even though his average return over 30 years is identical to hers, his portfolio runs out of money around year 22. Same average. Same total lifetime return. One retires wealthy, one retires broke. The only difference was the order the numbers showed up in, which is a factor precisely nobody controls. This is why so many retirement planners now consider 4% outdated, not because the math was ever fake, but because it silently assumes you'll get lucky with sequencing, and roughly half of all possible sequences, by definition, are worse than average. Morningstar, one of the largest independent investment research firms in the country, has run this analysis repeatedly in recent years and has consistently landed closer to 3.3 to 3.7% as a genuinely safe starting withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement, given current valuations in bond yields. That difference between 4% and 3.5% sounds tiny. On $1 million portfolio, it's the difference between $40,000 a year and $35,000. $5,000 doesn't sound catastrophic until you realize it's the exact $5,000 standing between running out of money at 79 and having enough at 95. Here's the part almost nobody says out loud though: being more conservative than 4% isn't automatically the right answer either, because the flip side of sequence risk is just as real and gets almost no airtime. If you retire directly into a strong bull run, a rigid 4% rule can leave you sitting on a portfolio that's ballooned to 3 times its starting size by your 80s. Having needlessly restricted your spending for 2 decades over a risk that never materialized for you personally. People have quite literally died with more money than they retired with, having skipped trips, skipped time with grandchildren, skipped the things money was supposed to buy them, out of fear of a scenario that simply didn't happen in their particular slice of history. So the honest answer isn't a fixed percentage at all. It's a range, and more importantly, it's flexibility. Researchers who study this now generally recommend what's called a dynamic or guardrails approach instead of one static number picked on day one and never touched again. In good years, when the portfolio is up, you allow yourself a bit more. In bad years, particularly early bad years, you trim spending slightly, delay a big purchase, skip the upgrade, and let the portfolio recover before resuming full withdrawals. This single adjustment, responding to sequence rather than ignoring it, has been shown in modeling to support meaningfully higher average lifetime withdrawals than a rigid 4% rule, while dramatically reducing the odds of running out of money in the unlucky scenarios. There's a psychological reason this rule persists anyway, even among people who know its limitations, and it's worth naming honestly. 4% is simple. It fits on a napkin. It gives you a single number to aim for, a finish line you can actually picture. And human beings are drawn to finish lines the same way they're drawn to round numbers on a scale or a bank account. A dynamic, flexible retirement plan that adjusts every year based on market conditions doesn't give you that same clean mental closure. It requires ongoing engagement instead of a one-time calculation, which is exactly why so many people quietly ignore the nuance and just retire at 25 times expenses and hope for the best. The uncomfortable truth is that there is no single number that guarantees a comfortable retirement, because nobody, not Bengen, not Morningstar, not any advisor with a nice office and a laminated chart, can tell you in advance which decade you're about to retire into. What actually protects you isn't a specific withdrawal percentage. It's the willingness to treat that percentage as a starting conversation instead of a locked-in promise, and the flexibility to spend a little less in the years the market tells you to, so you never have to find out the hard way which retiree you turned out to be. If your retirement plan right now consists of one number you calculated once and haven't touched since, that's not a plan. That's a guess with really good branding. Subscribe if you want the next video where we actually build a dynamic withdrawal strategy step by step, because the number that gets you into retirement is not the same number that should get you through it.